There's a worn recipe box sitting in my kitchen drawer, its wooden corners softened by decades of use. Inside, tucked between handwritten recipes for victory cake and mock apple pie, my grandmother penciled a note that still makes me pause. Make it last, make it count, waste nothing. She lived through the Depression and raised 6 kids on a teacher's salary during the 1940s. Every meal was a magic trick, every leftover a new beginning. The butter stretcher that doubled your dollar. Picture this. 1943, butter costs 30 cents a pound plus 7 ration points, and you've got a family of 8 staring at one precious stick. My grandmother learned this trick from her neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, who swore it saved her marriage when money got tight. You'd dissolve 1 envelope of unflavored gelatin in cold water, warm it gently, then whip it with a pound of softened butter and evaporated milk. Suddenly that single pound became 2 pounds of creamy spread that lasted a month in the icebox. The genius part? This spread looked and tasted like whipped butter, perfect for morning toast, when the kids lined up with empty plates. You couldn't fry with it, mind you, this was table butter only, but when every penny mattered, doubling your butter meant you could afford shoes for Johnny come September. Newspaper, magic, beyond reading. Those old newspapers stacked by the kitchen door weren't just for catching up on Roosevelt's latest policies. Rather than buying roll after roll of paper towels, 1940s homemakers used newspapers to clean windows, resulting in shiny, streak-free glass. My Aunt Dorothy swore by the technique, claiming the newsprint's texture grabbed dirt better than any modern cloth. But here's where it gets clever. Newspapers became drawer liners, wrapping paper, and even temporary refrigerator shelf covers. The trick was knowing which pages to use. The society pages with less ink worked best for delicate tasks. Just wait until you hear how they used newspaper for keeping root vegetables fresh all winter. That's coming up at number 47. The bacon grease jar that flavored everything. Bacon grease was the secret weapon of the 1950s kitchen, and every grandmother worth her salt had a special jar by the stove. After Sunday breakfast, that liquid gold got strained through cheesecloth into a clean mason jar. My grandmother's jar had gold written on it in her careful script. She wasn't joking. 1 tablespoon could transform plain green beans into something the kids actually wanted to eat. Use leftover bacon grease for frying eggs, sautéing greens, or adding a depth of flavor to gravies. During the war, when butter was precious, that bacon jar became the household's cooking fat. Some families even traded jars of clean bacon grease like currency. Mrs. Peterson down the street would give you 3 eggs for a half cup of good, clean dripping. Aluminum foil, the original recycling program. Sheets of aluminum foil are wiped with a dish rag and neatly folded back in the box for next time. This wasn't being cheap, this was being smart. During the war, civilians gathered aluminum foil right down to the shiny stuff wrapped around chewing gum so that it could be repurposed for the war effort. My mother still carefully washes and folds every piece of foil, a habit from watching her mother do the same. Clean foil got used 3, 4, sometimes 5 times before finally being crumpled up to scrub pots. Another use that saved money on steel wool. The best part? That final ball of used foil made the perfect toy for the cat. Nothing went to waste, not even entertainment. Perfect hard-boiled eggs every time. You know that frustration when half your egg white sticks to the shell? Your grandmother never had that problem. The key? Add a teaspoon of baking soda to the boiling water. This simple step makes peeling easy, thanks to a change in pH levels that separates the shell from the egg whites. This trick saved precious protein during lean times when you couldn't afford to lose even a bite of egg. My grandmother kept a small tin marked EGGSODA right next to her stove. She'd drop eggs into already boiling water with that magic teaspoon, time them exactly, 3 minutes for soft, 10 for hard, then plunge them into cold water. Perfect eggs every single time. No waste, no frustration, just smooth, beautiful eggs ready for egg salad sandwiches that stretched one egg into lunch for two. The icebox organization system. Before electric refrigerators became common, the icebox required military precision. The most practical arrangement was one where all operations moved from left to right, but it went deeper than that. Grandmother kept a chart inside the cabinet door showing exactly where everything belonged. Meat went in the coldest spot, directly under the ice block. Milk and cream lined the right side where cold air flowed down. Leftovers occupied the middle shelf in covered dishes, never uncovered as the ice would absorb odors. Vegetables stayed in the crisper drawer with a damp cloth to maintain humidity. This system meant nothing spoiled, nothing got lost, and the ice lasted 3 days instead of 2. When you paid the iceman by the block, those extra days added up to real savings. Making milk last without refrigeration. Here's something that would make modern food safety experts faint. Keeping milk fresh for days without constant refrigeration. The secret was scalding. Fresh milk got heated just to the point where tiny bubbles formed around the edges, not boiling, just hot enough to kill surface bacteria. Then it went into sterilized bottles and down to the coolest spot in the house. My great-aunt lived on a farm where electricity didn't arrive until 1951. She'd lower her milk bottles into the well on hot days, keeping them at a constant 55 degrees. For city folks, milk bottles went into a pan of cold water in the coolest corner, with a wet towel draped over top. The evaporation kept things cool, and milk stayed sweet for nearly a week. It's physics, not magic, though it surely seemed magical when fresh milk was Tuesday's luxury, lasting through Sunday dinner. Flour paste, the everything glue. Specialized cleaning items can really add up in price. Grandma uses her pantry items instead. And nothing proved more versatile than simple flour paste. Mix flour with water until smooth, cook until thick, and you've got paste for everything from wallpaper to school projects. My mother remembers making paper chains for Christmas with flour paste, carefully gluing each strip of repurposed wrapping paper. That same paste fixed torn book pages, sealed envelopes when you ran out of stamps with glue, and even held fabric patches until they could be properly sewn. One batch cost maybe 2 cents and lasted weeks in a covered jar. Compare that to store-bought glue at 15 cents a bottle, when 15 cents bought a loaf of bread. Potato water, the secret ingredient. Never, ever pour potato water down the drain. This starchy liquid was liquid gold in Depression kitchens. Those humble dried beans were worth their weight in gold when meat became a luxury most couldn't afford. And potato water made them even better. Use warm potato water instead of plain water for bread. The starch feeds the yeast and creates a softer crumb. Cold potato water thickens gravies without lumps. My grandmother even used it to starch my grandfather's Sunday shirts. She'd save it in mason jars, using it throughout the week. Her gravy was legendary, and now you know why. That potato starch created silk-smooth sauce from just drippings and flour. Some neighbors thought she had magical powers. Really, she just knew not to waste anything. Vinegar, the wonder cleaner. Long before fancy cleaning products, there was vinegar. See these smart ways to clean with salt and lemon, but vinegar was the true all-star. White vinegar cost pennies and cleaned everything from windows to coffee pots. My grandmother's vinegar bottle had a dozen uses written on a paper taped to it. Windows, 1 part to 3 water. Coffee pot, full strength monthly. Hair rinse, 1 tablespoon per quart. She'd soak fish in vinegar water to remove the smell, add it to pie crust for extra flakiness, and use it to set the dye when coloring fabric. The bathroom mirror never had spots, her coffee always tasted fresh, and her hair shined like a movie star's, all from a bottle that cost less than a nickel. Salt more than seasoning. Salt did double, triple, even quadruple duty in clever kitchens. Beyond seasoning, it preserved food, cleaned copper, removed stains, and even helped with laundry. My grandmother kept 3 kinds: table salt for cooking, kosher salt for preserving, and rock salt for the ice cream maker. Here's a trick she taught me. Sprinkle salt on a fresh egg spill, wait 5 minutes, and it sweeps up easily. Salt in the wash water kept colours from running. A paste of salt and vinegar brought tarnished copper back to life. She'd even throw a handful into the fireplace to clean the chimney. The chemical reaction helped break down soot. 1 box of salt replaced a dozen modern products, and it never went bad. Wax paper's hidden powers. Before plastic wrap existed, wax paper was the multitasker of the kitchen. Cut a piece of parchment paper to line a pan. Use your leftover scraps to grease pans, but wax paper went even further. My grandmother ironed wax paper onto fabric to make it water-resistant, instant raincoats for paper dolls and schoolbook covers. She'd run a hot iron over wax paper on her kitchen table, creating a smooth, easy, clean surface for rolling dough. Wrapped around cheese, it prevented drying without trapping moisture like plastic doughs. She even used it to polish her iron. Run the hot iron over wax paper, and any starch buildup disappeared. 1 box lasted months and cost a dime. Crumb jar economics. Every kitchen had a crumb jar, usually a pretty one displayed on the counter. During World War II, when meat was rationed and had to be purchased with tokens, this recipe went a long way in feeding a family, and breadcrumbs stretched everything. Toast ends, cracker bits, even the last broken cookies went into that jar. My grandmother would spread stale bread pieces on a cookie sheet, dry them in a low oven, then crush them fine. These crumbs became meatloaf extender, casserole toppings, and coating for fried foods. During flush times, she'd add herbs and call it Italian coating. During lean times, plain crumbs still made 4 pork chops feed 6 people. That pretty jar represented security. As long as it held crumbs, dinner could be stretched. Sour milk saves. Modern folks pour sour milk down the drain. Depression-era cooks saw liquid gold. Slightly soured milk made the most tender pancakes, the fluffiest biscuits, and the moistest chocolate cake you ever tasted. My grandmother had a sour milk recipe card file. When milk started to turn, she'd move it to the counter to sour properly, not spoil, but develop that tangy flavor. The acid in sour milk reacts with baking soda, creating extra lift in baked goods. Her chocolate cake recipe specifically called for sour milk, claiming fresh milk made it heavy. She'd sometimes add a teaspoon of vinegar to fresh milk when she needed sour milk immediately. Waste not, want not, and eat better because of it. Apple peels, tea and medicine. When apples were prepared for eating or drying, the peels would be carefully removed in long spirals and hung to dry near stoves. But here's what the reference doesn't tell you, my grandmother's specific technique that neighbors begged to learn. She'd peel apples in one continuous spiral, then hang them from the curtain rod in the kitchen, where rising heat from the stove dried them perfectly. She would steep them in hot water with a pinch of cinnamon if she had it, making a sweet tea that was our winter treat. But the real magic happened when someone got sick. She'd make a strong brew of apple peel tea with honey and a tiny pinch of salt. The pectins soothed upset stomachs better than any store-bought medicine, and it cost nothing but the time to save those peels. Celery leaves, the forgotten herb. Watch someone throw away celery leaves today, and you'd make a grandmother weep. Those leaves were carefully washed, tied in bundles, and hung to dry just like expensive herbs, because that's exactly what they were. Dried celery leaves went into the soup pot for depth of flavor. Ground fine, they became celery powder for seasoning. My grandmother kept a special jar labeled CLSE. Her combination of celery leaves and sea salt that went on everything from roast chicken to potato salad. Fresh leaves got chopped into tuna salad or soup. She'd say, "You buy the whole celery, You use the whole celery. One bunch provided vegetable sticks for lunch, seasoning for a week, and enough dried leaves to last a month. Mason Jar Mania. Many Americans canned fruits and vegetables during the World Wars, especially when rationing became the norm during World War II. But mason jars did so much more than just preserve food. My grandmother numbered her jars with a grease pencil, number 1 through number 50. She knew exactly what lived in each one. Flour in number 1 through 5, different beans in number 6 through 12, pickles and preserves in the rest. But here's the clever part. Those jars became measuring cups, marks scratched on the side, mixing bowls for small batches, and even drinking glasses for everyday use. She'd send lunch to my grandfather in a mason jar. Soup stayed hot for hours. Empty jars stored buttons, nails, and coins. Some women even used them as hair curlers. One good jar lasted decades and served a dozen purposes. The 3-bowl system. Every efficient kitchen had 3 bowls by the sink: wash, rinse, and bits. This system saved water, soap, and time when every resource counted. The wash bowl held hot, soapy water, just a few drops of soap, mind you. The rinse bowl had clean, warm water, but the genius was the bits bowl. All plate scrapings, vegetable trimmings, and food bits went here. Good scraps became tomorrow's soup. Vegetable trimmings went to the chickens or compost. Even dishwater got saved. Cooled, soapy water watered the garden. Rinse water went to the flowers. My grandmother could wash dishes for 8 people with less water than we use to rinse a single plate today. Rendering fat like a pro. When you have to cook everything from scratch, you'll notice how little margarine you have to last you a week. That's why rendering fat became an art form. Any fat trimmed from meat went into the rendering pot, a heavy iron pot kept just for this purpose. Low heat melted the fat slowly, leaving crispy bits, cracklings, that became snacks or flavoring. The clear fat got strained through cheesecloth into jars labeled by sauce: beef, pork, or chicken. Each had different uses: beef for frying potatoes, pork for biscuits, chicken for delicate pastries. My grandmother's pie crust, made with rendered leaf lard, won the county fair 5 years running. Store-bought shortening can't compare, she'd say, and she was right. Dishwater soup stock. Oh, this sounds terrible until you understand the system. After washing dishes from a roast dinner, that warm water held dissolved fats, meat juices, and vegetable essence, the beginning of tomorrow's soup. The rinse water from the meat platter went into a special pot. Add the water from boiling vegetables, the last bits of gravy, even the water from soaking dried beans. By evening, you had a rich base for soup. My grandmother would strain it, add bones or vegetable scraps, and simmer overnight on the back of the stove. Morning revealed a pot of golden broth that cost nothing but saved fragments. Dishwater soup fed millions during the Depression, though nobody called it that at the table. The calendar menu. Leftovers are used strategically later in the week. But the real genius was the calendar system that made it work. My grandmother kept a wall calendar just for meals. Sundays, roast chicken was planned, knowing Monday would be chicken salad, Tuesday, chicken soup, Wednesday, chicken croquettes. She'd write it all down, planning backwards from each main protein. This prevented waste and stopped the dreaded "what's for dinner" panic. Shopping happened once a week with a list derived from that calendar. No impulse buys, no forgotten ingredients. She knew exactly how many meals each purchase would provide. That calendar was her kitchen Bible, and it stretched a teacher's salary to feed 6 kids. Emergency substitutions. Being flexible in the kitchen is a great way to save money. First of all, try to choose recipes with ingredients that you already stock. But grandmothers knew substitutions we've forgotten. No eggs, 1 tablespoon of flax seed in 3 tablespoons of water per egg. No butter, equal parts of saved bacon grease and flour. no vanilla, a drop of maple syrup, or a pinch of nutmeg. My grandmother kept a card file of substitutions learned from neighbours and relatives. Her famous wacky cake used no eggs or dairy, just vinegar and baking soda for leavening. Born of necessity during rationing, it became the requested birthday cake even in prosperous times. That card file was her insurance policy against empty shelves. The pie safe purpose. Before refrigeration, the pie safe wasn't just furniture, it was food security. Those decorative punched tin panels weren't just pretty, they let air circulate while keeping flies out. My great-grandmother's pie safe held more than pies. The bottom shelf stored root vegetables in baskets. The middle held that day's baked goods and leftovers that didn't need refrigeration. The top shelf was for items in use, the sourdough starter, rising bread, or cooling preserves. She knew exactly what could safely stay at room temperature and for how long. In summer, she'd drape the whole thing with wet burlap, evaporation, cooling that worked better than you'd think. That pie safe fed a family of 10 without a single refrigerator. Blanching and shocking. Families with access to fruit trees or berry patches would spend long summer days preparing fruit for drying, but vegetables needed different treatment, blanching and shocking. Drop vegetables in boiling water for exactly timed periods, 30 seconds for spinach, 2 minutes for green beans. Then immediately plunge into ice water. This stopped cooking, set the color, and prepared vegetables for drying or freezing. My grandmother could process a bushel of beans in an hour using this method. The blanched vegetables went onto screens for drying or into the new freezer when they finally got one in 1948. But here's the trick. Save that blanching water. Cooled, it became the most nutritious water for houseplants you could imagine. The Stockpot Philosophy. Bones, vegetable and fruit scraps, fish heads and chicken feet found new purpose in rich, flavorful broth. The stockpot was never empty, never wasted. My grandmother's stockpot lived on the back burner, accepting contributions all week. Onion skins for color, celery leaves for flavor, chicken bones from dinner, carrot ends from lunch prep. Low heat, occasional water additions, and weekly straining produced liquid gold. That stock became soup, gravy, cooking liquid for rice, even a warming drink with salt and pepper when someone felt poorly. The week's cooking scraps transformed into the base for the next week's meals. It was perpetual motion cooking, where nothing ended and everything contributed. Windowsill gardens. Even in her 90s, she insisted on growing and drying her own herbs, but it started simpler, with windowsill gardens that anyone could manage. Green onions with roots still attached went into a glass of water. Within days, new growth appeared. Celery bottoms, carrot tops, even lettuce cores would sprout in water, then transfer to small pots. My grandmother's kitchen window looked like a miniature farm. These weren't full vegetables, you couldn't grow a whole carrot from a top, but the greens were nutritious and free. In February, when fresh vegetables cost dear, those windowsill greens went into soup, salads, and sandwiches. God provides, she'd say, but he expects you to tend the garden. Burnt match freshener. This sounds like folklore until you try it. Light a match, blow it out and wave it around the kitchen. Cooking odors disappear like magic. My grandmother kept a special tin of wooden matches just for this purpose. After cooking fish or cabbage, she'd light one match, blow it out, and walk through the kitchen waving it like a wand. The sulfur in the match head neutralized odors better than any spray. She learned this from her mother, who learned it from her mother. 3 generations of women who never bought air freshener because they didn't need to. Sometimes the old ways really are the best ways. Candle wax preserver. Before plastic wrap or vacuum sealers, melted paraffin wax sealed everything from jam jars to cheese wheels. This wasn't just for canning. It was daily preservation. My grandmother bought paraffin blocks like groceries. Melted in a double boiler, it sealed open jam jars, preserved cheese, even waterproofed matches. She dipped the cut end of a cheese wheel in melted wax, creating an airtight seal that kept cheese fresh for weeks. String cheese, she'd dip the whole strand. Hard cheeses got wax shells that peeled off easily. Even leftover soup got a wax paper circle pressed onto its surface, then sealed with a ring of melted wax. 1 pound of paraffin cost a nickel and preserved hundreds of dollars of food. The root cellar science. Not everyone had a root cellar, but everyone used root cellar principles. Cool, dark, humid, these conditions preserved food for months without refrigeration. My grandmother turned a kitchen cupboard into a mini root cellar. Potatoes in a bin with apple slices, the ethylene gas prevents sprouting. Carrots layered in barely damp sand. Onions in mesh bags or old stockings hanging from hooks. She'd wrap green tomatoes individually in newspaper, storing them in boxes to ripen slowly all winter. The cupboard door had ventilation holes covered with screen. A pan of water on the bottom maintained humidity. From October to March, that cupboard provided fresh vegetables when the garden lay dormant. Clarifying used cooking oil. Cooking smarter, not harder, was the unspoken rule of the time. This included recycling cooking oil until it truly couldn't be used anymore. After frying, my grandmother would let oil cool slightly, then add a few tablespoons of cornstarch. The cornstarch absorbed food particles and odors. Strain through cheesecloth, and that oil was good for several more uses. She kept separate jars for fish oil, chicken oil, and vegetable-only oil. Each had its purpose: fish oil for Friday fish fries, clean oil for donuts. She'd add a piece of raw potato while heating used oil. It absorbed any off flavors. Oil was expensive and rationed during the war. This system meant one bottle lasted a month instead of a week. The egg preservation method. When eggs were used in cooking, the shells would be rinsed clean, crushed, and thoroughly dried. But preserving whole eggs was the real magic. Fresh eggs, unwashed with the blooms still on, went into a crock of water glass, sodium silicate solution. Sounds strange, but eggs preserved this way stayed fresh for up to 9 months. My grandmother kept her egg crock in the basement, layering eggs as the hens laid them. Come winter, when hens stopped laying, she still had eggs for baking. City folks bought extra eggs when prices dropped in spring, preserving them for expensive winter months. The eggs looked and tasted normal, though whites didn't whip quite as high. Small sacrifice for year-round eggs at spring prices. Cornstarch magic. Yes, cornstarch was available during wartime and thank goodness, it was the miracle ingredient of thrifty kitchens. Beyond thickening gravy, cornstarch worked wonders. Mixed with cold water, it cleaned windows without streaking. Sprinkled in shoes, it absorbed odor and moisture. My grandmother made Play-Doh from cornstarch and salt. She'd dust it on playing cards to make them slide smoothly. Cornstarch paste soothed sunburns and diaper rash. She even used it as dry shampoo, brushing it through her hair when water was scarce. One box served a dozen purposes, lasted months, and cost pennies. Modern products just complicate what cornstarch did simply. Matchbox Gardens. During the war, victory gardens were patriotic duty, but apartment dwellers got creative with matchbox gardens. Literally, gardens started in matchboxes. My great-aunt lived in a third-floor walk-up with one sunny window. She started seeds in empty matchboxes filled with cotton and a sprinkle of soil. Lettuce, herbs, even tomatoes began life in those tiny boxes. Once sprouted, they moved to tin cans with drainage holes punched in the bottom. By summer, her fire escape looked like a jungle, producing enough tomatoes for sauce and salads. She'd trade vegetables with neighbors, creating a vertical farmer's market. Those Matchbox starts cost nothing, but produced food worth dollars. Paper bag magic. Before plastic bags, paper bags were valuable commodities, carefully saved and reused until they fell apart. But they did more than carry groceries. My grandmother assigned each paper bag a destiny. Clean ones stored potatoes and onions. The paper breathed, preventing rot. Waxed bags from cereal boxes became sandwich wrappers. She'd cut bags into sheets for draining fried foods, wrapping gifts, or making patterns for sewing. Twisted into tight rolls, they became fire starters. She even made a lampshade from carefully cut and glued bag paper during the war when replacements weren't available. One bag served 5 or 6 purposes before finally feeding the compost. Gelatin economy. Resourceful housewives used gelatin to extend their household butter rations, but gelatin's thrift went far beyond butter stretching. My grandmother bought unflavored gelatin by the box, using it for everything. Weak gelatin water set her pin curls better than any hairspray. A packet in the laundry made clothes crisp without starch. She'd make poor man's jam from fruit juice, sugar, and gelatin when fresh fruit was expensive. Gelatin clarified cloudy broth, thickened thin gravies, and even waterproofed matches when they were dipped in warm gelatin solution. During the Depression, when a box of gelatin cost less than a nickel, but did the work of products costing dollars, it was kitchen gold. Coal stove efficiency. Not everyone had gas or electric stoves. Coal stove cooking required skill, timing, and clever heat management that saved fuel and money. My grandmother's cousin Martha cooked on coal until 1955. She'd start the day's fire with newspaper and kindling, adding coal gradually. Here's the genius. She cooked in order of decreasing heat needs. Bread in the hot morning oven, roast for lunch as it cooled, slow-simmered soup on the dying afternoon coals, the warming shelf above dried herbs and apple rings. She'd bank the coals at night, covering them with ashes to hold heat for morning. One scuttle of coal cooked 3 meals and heated dishwater. Modern cooks use 3 times the energy for half the results. Pencil shaving fire starters. Schools saved pencil shavings in coffee cans, and families would collect them for the perfect fire starters. Free, effective, and aromatic from the cedar. Mixed with melted candle stubs and a bit of saved bacon grease, pencil shavings were pressed into paper cupcake liners and cooled. One of these homemade starters could ignite even damp wood. My grandfather kept a tin of them by the fireplace and another in his fishing kit. They burned hot and long, smelled like cedar forest, and cost nothing but the effort to save the shavings. The school janitor had a waiting list of families wanting his pencil shavings. Waste not, want not. Even pencil shavings had value. Vinegar egg preservative. Different from water glass preservation, the vinegar method worked for shorter-term storage and created pickled eggs as a bonus. Hard-boiled eggs peeled and packed in jars with vinegar, onions and spices, kept for months. My grandmother made these in huge batches when eggs were cheap in spring. The purple ones with beet juice were for special occasions. Plain white vinegar eggs went into lunch pails all winter. The vinegar prevented spoilage while adding flavor. She'd slice them for sandwiches, chop them for potato salad, or serve them whole with salt and pepper. Bar owners bought her pickled eggs by the gallon. 5 dozen eggs preserved in May meant protein through December. The cooling cupboard. Before refrigerators were common, houses had cooling cupboards, usually on the north side with ventilation to the outside. My grandmother's cooling cupboard was a marvel of engineering. Wire mesh shelves allowed air circulation. The bottom held a zinc-lined drawer for ice blocks. Vents top and bottom created convection currents. In winter, it stayed just above freezing. Summer required daily ice, but one 25-pound block kept milk, butter, and leftovers safe for 2 days. She knew exactly where each food stayed freshest: milk closest to ice, vegetables in the humid middle, bread and pies up top where it was driest. That cupboard fed a family for 20 years before electricity arrived. Soap slivers reborn. Bar soap lasts forever, and you won't be throwing away all that plastic packaging. But the real economy came from never wasting even soap slivers. My grandmother kept a jar by each sink for soap bits. When full, she'd add hot water and let them melt into soft soap for laundry. Pressed together when wet, slivers formed new bars. She'd stuff soap pieces into a mesh bag made from old stockings, creating a sudsy scrubber for tough jobs. Ground dry in her meat grinder, kept just for soap, they became laundry flakes. During the war, when soap was rationed, she'd add saved bacon grease and lye to stretch store soap into homemade batches. 1 bar of Fell's naphtha could become 3 bars of household soap. Nothing went to waste, not even the smallest sliver. Brown paper ironing. Large sheets are handy to keep around for drop cloths for painting, but brown paper served another crucial purpose: protecting delicate fabrics while ironing. My grandmother saved every piece of brown paper that came into the house. Placed between iron and fabric, it prevented shine on dark clothes and protected delicate items. Wax spots on tablecloths. Brown paper and a warm iron lifted them right out. She'd even press flowers between brown paper sheets with the iron, creating dried flowers for winter arrangements in minutes instead of weeks. Folded brown paper under furniture legs protected floors when moving. Cut into strips, it became templates for quilting. 1 paper bag served a dozen purposes before finally starting the next fire: cottage cheesecloth. Making cottage cheese at home saved money and used up milk before it spoiled. The leftover whey wasn't waste, it was liquid nutrition. When milk started to sour, my grandmother would heat it gently until it curdled. Strained through clean cloth, the curds became cottage cheese. But that whey, the liquid gold, went into bread dough for extra protein, replaced water in soup, or became a nutritious drink mixed with fruit juice. She'd even water plants with cooled whey. Tomatoes especially loved it. The straining cloth boiled clean, served for months. 1 gallon of turning milk became a pound of cheese, plus a quart of whey that enriched a week's worth of meals. Feather pillow revival. Good feather pillows cost dear, so maintaining them was essential. My grandmother's pillow restoration day was a neighborhood event. Twice yearly, she'd empty feather pillows into a wash tub of warm, soapy water. The feathers soaked while she washed and sun-bleached the empty ticking. Clean feathers went onto screens in the sun to dry, a day-long process with frequent fluffing. Meanwhile, she'd mend the ticking, adding new fabric if needed. Reassembled, those pillows felt brand new. Neighbors brought their pillows for the communal washing day. She charged a dime per pillow for her expertise, earning enough to buy new ticking for everyone. 50-year-old pillows stayed fresh with this care. Calcium water. Eggshells are indeed over 90% calcium carbonate, the same compound found in dietary calcium supplements today. But there was another way to get calcium, from bones. Clean bones from soup making got a second life. Placed in water with a tablespoon of vinegar, they slowly released calcium into the liquid. My grandmother kept a jar of bone water brewing constantly. A tablespoon in soup, gravy, or even drinking water added invisible calcium. She'd tell pregnant neighbors to drink bone water daily. The bones could steep for weeks before exhausting their minerals. In a time when milk was expensive and not always available, this free calcium source kept bones strong and teeth healthy. Modern science proves she was right. Drawer sachets. Received a ribbon on a gift, or have a scrap of fabric left from a project? Save it for crafting. One perfect use was drawer sachets that cost nothing but smelled expensive. My grandmother saved every pretty scrap of fabric, every bit of lace, every ribbon. These became sachets filled with dried lavender from her garden, cedar shavings from grandfather's workshop, or dried orange peel. Tucked into drawers, they kept clothes fresh and moths away. She'd make special sachets for gift, rose petals for a new bride, mint for a colicky baby's room. The filling cost nothing, gathered from garden and kitchen. The pouches used scraps too small for anything else, yet these simple sachets were coveted gifts that lasted years. Sheet rotation system. Sheets wore out in the middle first, but clever housewives extended their life by years with a simple rotation system. My grandmother marked her sheets T and B in tiny stitches at the corners. Top sheets became bottom sheets when they showed wear. When the middle wore thin, she'd cut the sheet in half, sew the outer edges together, and hem the new outer edges. A worn sheet became a good-as-new one with an hour's work. Completely worn sheets became pillowcases, cleaning rags, or bandages. She'd braid strips into rag rugs. One set of sheets could last a decade with this system. During the Depression, when new sheets meant no shoes for the children, this knowledge was survival. Newspaper Root Cellar. Remember that newspaper trick I mentioned earlier? Here's the full genius of newspaper food storage that kept root vegetables fresh all winter. My grandmother would harvest potatoes, carrots, and turnips on a dry day, brush off dirt, but never wash them. Each vegetable got wrapped individually in newspaper. The society pages were best, less ink. Layered in wooden crates with more newspaper between layers, they went to the coolest corner of the basement. The newspaper regulated moisture, prevented rot from spreading, and kept vegetables from touching. Apples, stored the same way, lasted until spring. She'd check weekly, removing any soft spots. One October harvest fed the family until May. The dish rag boiling ritual. Monday was wash day, but dish rag boiling happened daily in my grandmother's kitchen. This wasn't just cleanliness, it was disease prevention when antibiotics didn't exist. Every evening, dish rags and kitchen towels went into a special pot with water and a tablespoon of washing soda. Boiled for 15 minutes, they emerged sanitized and bright white. The genius was in the details. She'd add lemon peels for freshness and brightness. The boiling water then cooled and watered her garden. Nothing wasted. Those dish rags lasted years because daily boiling prevented the rot that destroys fabric. Neighbors who just rinsed and hung their rags replaced them monthly. Grandmother's lasted until they literally fell apart. She kept 3 sets rotating, one in use, one drying, one waiting. This system prevented the spread of illness in a time when a simple infection could mean death. During the 1918 flu pandemic, her family stayed healthy while neighbors fell ill. She credited the dish rag boiling, and modern science would agree. Coffee grounds garden gold. Nothing was wasted, especially not coffee grounds. That morning's coffee became afternoon's garden amendment, pest deterrent, and cleaning scrub. My grandmother had a special bucket by the sink just for grounds. Used grounds went directly around acid-loving plants. Azaleas, blueberries, and roses thrived. Mixed with soap shavings, they became a powerful scrub for grimy hands after gardening. Scattered around seedlings, they deterred slugs and snails without poison. She'd dry some grounds in the oven, mix with rendered fat, and create an exfoliating soap that removed everything from motor oil to kitchen grease. During the Depression, when coffee was precious, every ground counted twice, once for the morning cup, again for its afterlife. Neighbors brought their grounds to trade for vegetables grown in her coffee-enriched soil. She'd say, "Coffee wakes up more than just people, it wakes up the garden too." Modern gardeners paid dollars for coffee ground fertilizer. She got it free with every pot. The Pie Crust Chronicles. Perfect pie crust without modern shortcuts required technique passed mother to daughter. My grandmother's crust won county fairs, fed farmhands, and sealed her reputation as the best baker in 3 counties. Her secret wasn't ingredients, it was temperature and handling. Everything stayed cold. Flour lived in the icebox overnight. Lard came straight from the cold cellar. Even the rolling pin chilled in cold water. She'd cut fat into flour with 2 knives, never touching with warm hands. Ice water, added 1 tablespoon at a time, brought it together. But here's the real secret. She rolled between 2 flour sack towels, preventing sticking without adding flour that makes crust tough. Leftover scraps? Rolled thin, sprinkled with cinnamon sugar, and baked into cookies for children. 1 batch of dough made 2 pies plus treats. She'd make 6 crusts at once, freeze extras between waxed paper. Unexpected company never caught her without pie. Hospitality, she'd say, starts with cold lard and confidence. Meat-stretching mathematics. During World War II, when meat was rationed and had to be purchased with tokens, this recipe went a long way in feeding a family, but the real art was in the daily stretching that made 1 pound feed 8 people. My grandmother could make a single pound of ground beef feed her entire family with her multiplication method. First, she'd brown the meat with extra onions. They absorbed flavor and added bulk. Then came the secret weapons. Cooked lentils that looked like meat when mixed in, breadcrumbs soaked in milk, and finely grated vegetables. By the time she finished, that 1 pound became 3 pounds of meat mixture, formed into meatballs with more bread and egg, topped with gravy made from the pan, drippings stretched with potato water, served over mashed potatoes. Everyone left the table full. She kept a chart showing how many meals each cut of meat could provide when properly stretched. Sunday's roast became Monday's hash, Tuesday's soup, Wednesday's sandwiches, Thursday's croquettes. 1 chicken fed the family for a full week. The grease pencil system. Before label makers or permanent markers, the grease pencil was the unsung hero of kitchen organization. My grandmother bought them by the dozen, keeping 1 tied to every storage area with butcher's twine. Every leftover container got marked with contents and date. Frozen packages showed cut of meat and weight. She'd write directly on dark jars, light containers, even on the kitchen window, to remind herself when bread was rising. The beauty? Grease pencil rubbed off easily with a dry cloth when contents changed. She tracked egg production on the calendar, meat prices on the wall chart, even garden planting on the shed door, all with grease pencil. During canning season, jar lids got numbered to match her canning log. This system prevented the mystery leftovers that plague modern fridges. Everything had a date, a purpose, a plan. When the war brought rationing, her grease pencil tracking showed exactly how much sugar remained for preserving season. Organization was survival, and grease pencils made it possible. Window washing wizardry. Wiping windows or glassware with newspapers instead of paper towels results in shiny, streak-free glass, but grandmother's full system turned window washing into an art form that neighbors gathered to learn. First came the washing water, hot with a splash of vinegar and a drop of bluing for extra sparkle. She'd wash with a chamois leather that had served the family for 20 years, kept soft with occasional oil treatment. Then came the newspaper, but not just any newspaper. She saved the stock market pages, claiming they had the perfect ink-to-paper ratio. The technique mattered: circular motions for washing, vertical strokes for drying. She'd finish with a flour sack cloth for the final polish. But here's the forgotten trick. She washed windows on cloudy days. Sun made them dry too fast, causing streaks. Her windows sparkled like diamonds, and she charged wealthy neighbors 50 cents to wash theirs using her method. That chamois and knowledge earned grocery money during lean times. Herbal medicine cabinet. Before running to the drugstore, grandmothers ran to the garden. My grandmother's herbal knowledge came from her mother, who learned from her mother generations of healing wisdom that cost nothing but seeds and soil. Chamomile for upset stomachs, feverfew for headaches, calendula for skin problems. She grew them all. But the preparation was key. Flowers picked at dawn when oils were strongest, dried in paper bags hung from rafters, labelled with date and purpose. She made tinctures in saved whiskey bottles, oils in olive oil, salves with beeswax from neighbours' hives. Willowbark tea for pain worked as well as aspirin, because it contained the same active ingredient. She kept a leather journal documenting which remedies worked for which neighbours. During the Depression, when doctors cost money nobody had, her kitchen table became the neighbourhood clinic. Modern medicine validates much of what she knew instinctively. That garden pharmacy kept the community healthy when traditional medicine was out of reach. Oatmeal innovation. A large container of rolled oats could feed a family for weeks. Mothers would stretch those oats further than seems possible, but oatmeal went far beyond breakfast porridge in creative kitchens. My grandmother ground oats into flour for baking when wheat flour was scarce. Mixed with water, ground oats became a meat extender better than breadcrumbs. She'd toast oats in a dry pan until golden, creating a crunchy topping for casseroles. Cooked oatmeal, cooled and sliced, then fried like polenta, became oatmeal steaks that fooled nobody but filled bellies. She made oat milk decades before it was trendy, soaking oats overnight, straining the liquid for drinking or baking. Even used oatmeal water became face wash for her perfect complexion. The oat bag never emptied. She'd add new oats on top of old, using the bottom first. One container provided breakfast, lunch additions, baking ingredient, meat stretcher, beauty treatment, and even paste for children's projects when mixed thick. Versatility made oatmeal kitchen gold. Sugar, stretching sorcery. Sugar was another strictly rationed ingredient. Homemakers would use as little of it as they could when baking or cooking, adding in honey to make up for the shortfall. But the real magic was in the techniques that made sugar seem abundant. My grandmother could make 1 cup of sugar do the work of 3. She'd grind it fine in her meat grinder, kept separate for sugar and spices, creating powdered sugar that seemed to multiply. Brown sugar got made from white with saved molasses. She'd caramelize sugar for color and deeper flavor, making less seem like more. Her secret weapon was sugar syrup, equal parts sugar and water, boiled and stored. 1 cup of sugar became 2 cups of syrup, perfect for sweetening drinks or baking. She grew stevia before anyone knew the name, drying leaves for tea sweetener. Sweet vegetables like beets and carrots replaced sugar in cakes. During the war, her famous sugarless cookies used honey, molasses, and mashed sweet potatoes. Nobody missed the sugar because her techniques amplified every grain. Clothespin philosophy. Wooden clothespins weren't just for laundry, they were the multi-tools of the household. My grandmother kept a basket of them in the kitchen, using them for everything except their intended purpose half the time. Clothespins sealed food bags before twist ties existed. Clipped to the tablecloth, they prevented wind from disturbing outdoor meals. She'd use them as chip clips, memo holders, and even emergency clamps for gluing projects. Broken pins became kindling, plant markers, or dolls for children. She'd boil old pins with walnut hulls to restore their color. During the Depression, she made Christmas ornaments from clothespins, creating angels and reindeer that decorated trees for decades. Her pin bag, sewn from flour sacks, hung by the door holding sorted pins, newest for best clothes, older for everyday washing, oldest for household uses. When plastic pins appeared, she stuck with wood. "These will last my lifetime and beyond," she'd say. She was right. I still use her clothespins, each one smooth from decades of service. Baking soda brilliance. Add a teaspoon of baking soda to the boiling water for perfect eggs, but that was just the beginning of baking soda's kitchen magic. My grandmother bought it by the pound, using it for everything. A paste cleaned the silver without expensive polish. Sprinkled on grease fires, it smothered flames safely. She'd add a pinch to tomato sauce to reduce acidity, to beans to prevent gas, to tough meat for tenderness. Her refrigerator predecessor, the icebox, got a monthly scrub with baking soda solution. She made toothpaste from soda and salt, deodorant from soda and cornstarch. Vegetables stayed bright green with a pinch in the cooking water. She'd even add it to bath water for soft skin. During the war, when cleaning products disappeared from shelves, baking soda filled every gap. One box replaced dozens of modern products. She kept containers labeled for different uses, food grade for cooking, older supplies for cleaning. God made dirt and baking soda to clean it, she'd joke. 70 years later, her methods still work better than chemicals. Dust to dollars. Even household dust had value in the waste-nothing mentality. My grandmother saved dust from her carpet sweeper in paper bags, composting it with kitchen scraps for the richest garden soil imaginable. But she went further. Dryer lint from her wringer washer's lint trap got saved for fire starters mixed with melted candle stubs. Vacuum cleaner bags, when finally full, got emptied and contents sorted, dust to compost, buttons and coins recovered, even small screws saved. She'd say, "Money hides in the strangest places." Once found a gold earring in the sweeper bag, returned it to the grateful neighbor. The dust from her sewing room, full of thread and fabric fibers, became stuffing for pincushions and small pillows. Even wood ash from the fireplace had purpose, scattered on icy walks for traction, added to garden soil for potassium, mixed with water for homemade lye. Nothing was truly waste. In her world, dust was just resources waiting for the right purpose. The fermentation station. Pickled vegetables, homemade sauerkraut, and kefir delivered probiotics before science even had a name for them. My grandmother's basement corner was a fermentation laboratory decades before it became trendy. Crocks lined the walls, sauerkraut fermenting, pickles curing, even fermented fish, her Norwegian heritage showing. She understood timing, temperature, and salt ratios through experience. Her sauerkraut stayed crisp and tangy all winter, providing vitamin C when fresh vegetables were memories. She made fermented beet kvass for digestion, fermented garlic in honey for winter colds, even fermented hot sauce from garden peppers. The basement maintained perfect temperature year-round, creating consistent results. She'd trade fermented goods with neighbors of different ethnicities, learning Korean kimchi and Russian pickled mushrooms. This wasn't hobby crafting. Fermentation preserved harvest abundance and provided crucial nutrition during lean months. Her fermentation journal, written in pencil on the basement wall, tracked dates and results. Modern science proves fermented foods' health benefits. She just knew they kept the family healthy when fresh food was scarce. Tea bag transformation. Used tea bags got second lives that would amaze modern recyclers. My grandmother kept a small dish by the sink, collecting used bags, each destined for different purposes. Black tea bags, squeezed and cooled, soothed tired eyes and minor burns. She'd steep used bags again for a weak tea that cleaned mirrors and shined shoes. Dried contents became deodorizer for shoes and refrigerator. She'd open used bags, mixing dried tea with used coffee grounds for the acid-loving plants. During the war, when tea was precious, she'd dry used leaves completely, mix with mint from the garden, creating second-time tea that tasted fresh. Chamomile bags soothed babies' teething gums, green tea bags reduced under-eye circles, She even used strong tea as a wood stain for scratched furniture. One tea bag served its primary purpose, then worked 3 more jobs before finally enriching the compost. When tea bags cost precious money, this recycling wasn't environmental consciousness, it was economic survival. Every bag pulled maximum duty. String saves everything. The string drawer in my grandmother's kitchen held a fortune in saved twine, each piece carefully wound and sorted by thickness and type. This wasn't hoarding, it was resource management at its finest. Package string got unwound, knots picked out, and wound onto empty spools. She had butcher's twine, baker's string, postal cord, even unraveled burlap bags. Each had specific uses. Thin string trussed chickens and tied herbs. Thick cord secured packages and bundled newspapers. She'd braid string into stronger rope, crochet it into pot scrubbers, even weave it into small mats. During the war, good string was impossible to find. Her saved collection kept gardens staked, packages secured, and dozens of household tasks functioning. She taught neighborhood children to make toys from string, Jacob's ladders, cat's cradles, and flying toys. Nothing store-bought matched the strength of her recycled string. Modern synthetic twine breaks and stretches. Her cotton string, some saved for 40 years, still tied strong and true. Good string is like good friends, she'd say, worth keeping close. Envelope engineering. Used envelopes became organizational tools that would make modern systems jealous. My grandmother never threw away an envelope, transforming each into a storage solution. She'd carefully open envelopes, creating pockets for her recipe box, each category in its own recycled envelope. Seed saving required dozens of labeled envelopes marked with variety and date. Her budget system used envelopes decades before it became a financial guru technique. Cash for groceries in one, electricity money in another, savings in a hidden third. Bill receipts lived in their original envelopes, filed by month in a shoebox. She cut pretty envelopes into gift tags, use security envelopes for shopping lists. The pattern hid writing from prying eyes, even fold them into temporary funnels for filling salt shakers. Window envelopes became picture frames for grandchildren's school photos. During the Depression, when a box of new envelopes cost food money, her system kept the household organized. Modern filing systems can't match the simplicity of her envelope method. Everything had a pocket. Every pocket had a purpose. Mesh bag mastery. Those mesh bags from onions and potatoes were gold in grandmother's kitchen. She'd wash them carefully, sort by size, and assign each a purpose in her waste-nothing household. Large bags held suet for birds hanging from trees in winter. Medium bags became pot scrubbers superior to any store-bought version. Small bags stored soap slivers for sudsy cleaning. She'd fill them with herbs for soup, creating removable seasoning packets. In the garden, mesh bags protected growing melons from ground rot. She'd use them as strainers for berry juice, holders for flower bulbs, even temporary minnow nets for grandchildren's fishing expeditions. During canning season, mesh bags held spices for pickling, easily removed when done. She made laundry bags for delicates, hair rollers from mesh and rags, even Christmas decorations filled with pine cones and painted gold. The recycling movement thinks it invented repurposing. My grandmother was doing it during the Depression, when mesh bags were too valuable to waste. Every bag served multiple lives before finally decomposing into the garden it helped grow. Bottle cap genius. Metal bottle caps accumulated in a jar by the kitchen door, waiting for their second careers. During the war, metal was precious, and every cap counted for something. My grandmother hammered caps flat for washers when fixing things. Nailed to boards, they became mud scrapers by doors. She'd punch holes in caps, creating shakers for flour or powdered sugar. Painted and strung, they became children's noisemakers. During the Depression, she'd cover caps with fabric scraps, creating checkers for homemade game boards. Sharp edges of caps scraped fish scales better than expensive tools. She'd nail them in patterns on boards, creating decorative trivets that protected tables from hot pots. Even used them as miniature cookie cutters for fancy tea cookies. When the war brought metal drives, she had pounds of caps ready. But she kept the prettiest ones, eventually creating a backsplash in her kitchen from caps collected over 40 years. That backsplash told stories, each cap a memory of birthday root beers and holiday Coca-Colas. Trash to others, treasure and tools to those who knew their worth. Calendar craft revolution. Old calendars never hit the trash. Those 12 pictures became a year's worth of craft supplies, gift wrap, and household helpers in grandmother's capable hands. Pretty pictures became greeting cards, carefully cut and paired with saved cardstock. She'd laminate calendar pages with clear contact paper when it finally appeared in the 1960s, creating placemats that lasted years. Children learned geography from old map calendars, mathematics from number grids on the backs. She'd cut them into envelope liners for special letters, book covers for school texts, drawer liners for dresser drawers. During lean Christmases, calendar pictures in homemade frames became gifts. She decoupaged calendar flowers onto plain boxes, creating keepsake containers. The stiff cardboard backing served as templates for sewing projects, desk blotters, or temporary patches for broken windows. Even the wire binding found use, straightened for plant stakes, bent for picture hangers. She'd say, 12 months of use, then 12 months of reuse. Those calendars gave twice, marking time, then serving time. Nothing got wasted, especially not beauty printed on good paper. Wax paper window repair. Before tape was common, broken windows got temporary fixes that lasted months. My grandmother's wax paper method saved many a cold night when glass and glaziers were luxuries. Small cracks got covered with wax paper, ironed onto the glass. The wax melted just enough to seal. For larger breaks, she'd create a patch from cardboard, cover it with wax paper, and iron it smooth. The wax made it somewhat waterproof and translucent enough for light. During the war, when window glass was impossible to find, entire panes got the wax paper treatment. She'd layer multiple sheets for strength, ironing between each layer. Added benefit, the translucent paper provided privacy while admitting light. Storm windows weren't available, so she'd add wax paper as an extra layer for insulation. Even good windows got wax paper treatments in winter. A sheet inside created dead air space for warmth. The method worked so well that some neighbors kept their temporary repairs for years. When glass finally became available, she still used wax paper for workshop windows. Why waste good glass where wax paper works? Potato stamp printing. Potatoes, past their prime, became printing presses in grandmother's kitchen. This wasn't just child's entertainment, it was a legitimate decorating and labeling system. Cut in half, potatoes got carved into letters and designs. She'd mark feed sacks with potato-stamped labels. Flour, sugar, chicken feed. Gift wrap came from brown paper, potato-stamped with festive designs. She taught children letters by carving the alphabet into potatoes, letting them stamp their way to literacy. During the war, when rubber stamps were impossible to find, she ran a small business making potato stamps for local shops to mark prices. The carved potatoes lasted several days if stored properly. She'd use different vegetables for different effects, turnips for larger stamps, carrots for fine detail. Food coloring mixed with vinegar became ink that wouldn't run. Even made wallpaper border for the bathroom using potato stamps and leftover paint. Modern crafters pay dollars for stamps. She made them from vegetables destined for compost, creating beauty from almost nothing. Feather duster renaissance. When chickens provided Sunday dinner, their feathers provided Monday's cleaning tools. My grandmother's feather dusters put modern synthetic versions to shame. She'd save wing feathers especially, washing them in soapy water, rinsing with vinegar water for shine. Bound with saved string onto whittled handles, they became dusters that attracted dust rather than spreading it. Different feathers served different purposes: soft breast feathers for delicate items, sturdy wing feathers for sealing fans. She'd make tiny dusters from single feathers for cleaning typewriter keys and radio dials. During molting season, she'd gather naturally shed feathers, sorting by size and softness. Artists bought her prepared feathers for painting. Milliners wanted them for hat decoration. She even made fishing flies from the brightest feathers, selling them to sporting goods stores. One chicken provided meat for dinner, bones for soup, and feathers for a dozen purposes. She'd oil the dusters occasionally with a drop of lemon oil, keeping them supple for years. Those feathers earned their keep long after the chicken stopped laying. Matchstick crafts. Used wooden matches never hit the trash. Grandmother kept a tin of them, each burnt stick destined for clever reuse that would amaze modern crafters. Matches became tiny tools, applying glue to small spaces, stirring single servings of paint, cleaning typewriter keys. She'd bundle them into fire starters with wax and sawdust. Children built log cabins and fences from matches, learning construction basics. During the war, she made picture frames from matches, selling them for war bond money. Sanded smooth, they became applicators for medicines and cosmetics. She'd char them further for drawing sticks, creating artwork that sold at church bazaars. Ground in her mortar and pestle, burnt matches became black pigment for homemade paint, even made tiny furniture for dollhouses, each piece perfectly scaled. The phosphorus tips, carefully removed before use, went into the garden. Plants loved the minerals. She'd say, "Strike a match once for light, then use it 3 more times for life." Those burnt sticks built toys, art, and income from something others called garbage. Rubber band revolution. Every rubber band that entered the house got saved, sorted by size, and stored in a drawer that represented elastic possibility. This wasn't mere saving, it was resource management. Wide bands from broccoli became jar openers, wrapped around stubborn lids for grip. Thin bands held papers, bundled pencils, secured lids on leftover containers. She'd chain bands together for longer needs, braid them for strength. During the war, when rubber was rationed for military use, her saved bands became neighborhood currency. She'd trade them for eggs, vegetables, even sugar rations. Broken bands got tied into continuous loops for different uses. She made toys, band guns for boys, jump ropes for girls, even musical instruments with bands stretched over boxes. Canning season required dozens for securing cheesecloth over jars. She'd use them as temporary gaskets, drawer pulls on broken furniture, even exercise equipment for arthritic fingers. The band drawer was medicine cabinet, hardware store, and toy box combined. Modern synthetic bands break quickly. Her natural rubber bands, some 40 years old, still stretched true. Cork conservation. Wine corks were rare treasures when wine was for weddings and wakes only. Every cork got saved, each finding new purpose in grandmother's innovative household. Cut into rounds, corks became furniture protectors under lamps and trivets. Sliced lengthwise, they turned into drawer pulls for lightweight drawers. She'd burn one end to create charcoal for marking fabric. The other end stayed clean for erasing. During the war, cork became fishing floats when store-bought weren't available. She'd hollow them for salt and pepper shakers on picnics, string them for bath toys. Ground cork mixed with glue became gap filler for drafty windows. She made pin cushions, hot pot handles, even stamps for decorating. Whole cork stored in a jar of mineral oil became fire starters that burned long and steady. She'd sell decorated corks as Christmas ornaments, earning Christmas money from wine bottles others discarded. Each cork served multiple purposes before finally decomposing in the garden. Good cork is like good wine, she'd say. It improves with age and serves many purposes. Pencil stub system? No pencil was too short to use in grandmother's house. She kept a jar of stubs by the phone, each piece serving until it literally couldn't be held. She'd make holders from hollow reeds, extending pencil life by months. 2 stubs taped together became 1 usable pencil. Ground in her mortar, pencil lead became lubricant for sticky locks and drawers. She'd use stubby pencils for garden markers, pushing them deep beside plants. During the war, when pencils were scarce, she ran a pencil exchange, trading 1 new pencil for 12 stubs, then creating new pencils from the pieces. Colored pencil stubs got melted together, creating rainbow crayons children loved. She'd sharpen stubs with a paring knife, saving every shaving for fire starters. Even made jewelry from pencil stubs, drilling and stringing them for unique necklaces that sold at craft fairs. The eraser ends became stamps when carved. The wood became kindling. She'd say, "A pencil serves from tree to ash with 100 stops between." Nothing proved too small for use. Safety pin surgery. Safety pins were the Swiss Army knives of the sewing basket. My grandmother kept hundreds, sorted by size, each one serving dozens of purposes beyond holding fabric. Large pins became clothesline pulleys when strung with rope. Medium pins temporarily hemmed skirts, held patterns to fabric, even served as zipper pulls when tabs broke. Small pins picked locks, legally her own when keys were lost, cleaned pipes on gas stoves, removed splinters. She'd string them into chains for babies to play with, bend them into hooks for Christmas ornaments. During the war, she made jewelry from safety pins and beads, selling victory pins for war bonds. Pins marked knitting rows, held hair in place, even became emergency fishing hooks. She'd use them as awls for leather work, surgical tools for lance boils, even electrical connectors in desperate times. Her pin cushion was a pharmacy, hardware store, and craft supply rolled into one. Modern pins break and bend. Her steel pins, some inherited from her mother, still closed tight and true after 70 years of service. Bread bag brilliance. Before plastic, bread came in waxed paper bags that grandmother transformed into household helpers. Every bag got shaken clean, folded carefully, and stored for reuse. Waxed bags became sandwich wrappers for lunch pails, lasting weeks with careful use. She'd iron them between cloth to refresh the wax coating. Cut into sheets, they lined cake pans better than any modern product. During canning season, waxed paper circles sealed jars before lids went on. She'd use them for rolling cookies. Dough never stuck to waxed paper. Twisted into rope, they became waterproof ties for outdoor use. She even made raincoats for chickens during storms, yes, really, to keep laying hens dry and productive. In the garden, waxed bags protected young plants from frost. She'd sell prepared bags to neighbors for a penny each, good money when bread cost a nickel. Those bags served more purposes than the bread they carried. Modern plastic tears and pollutes. Her waxed paper biodegraded gracefully after multiple uses. Good packaging serves twice, she'd say, once for the product, once for the people. Broken dish dowry. Broken dishes never hit the trash in grandmother's kitchen. Instead, they began new lives that would make modern recyclers jealous. She kept a bucket of broken pieces sorted by color. Sharp edges got ground smooth on the concrete step. Then pieces became mosaic material. She'd decorate flower pots, stepping stones, even created a beautiful backsplash from 20 years of broken dishes. Each piece told a story, wedding china mixed with everyday plates. Children made trivets by arranging pieces in concrete-filled pie tins. She'd use flat pieces as plant markers in the garden, writing with grease pencil. Curved pieces became scoops for flour and sugar bins. During the Depression, she made jewelry from china pieces, drilling holes and polishing edges. Her disaster jewelry sold well. People loved wearing pieces of grandmother's china. Even used broken dishes for drainage in plant pots better than rocks and free. She'd say, "A broken dish is just a dish finding new purpose." That bucket of pieces represented resilience, beautiful things broken but not defeated, serving in new ways. Tin can telegraph. Government-issued cookbooks urged families to embrace heartier grains, but they also urged saving every tin can. Grandmother's workshop proved why. Those cans became an entire hardware store. Large cans became planters with drainage holes punched by nail. Medium cans stored nails, screws, and buttons, contents visible through glass baby food jar lids fitted on top. Small cans were scoops, funnels with bottoms removed, even cookie cutters. She'd make lanterns by punching decorative holes, placing candles inside for outdoor lighting. During the war, she created an entire communication system with cans and string for neighborhood children. Air raid wardens' children could telegraph alerts during practice drills. Cans became stilts for children, drums for music, even speakers for crystal radios. She'd nest graduated sizes for compact storage. The sharp lids, carefully saved, became scraping tools and templates. She ran a small business making tin can crafts. Tourists loved her hobo art made from humble cans. One empty can served 10 purposes before finally rusting into the garden for iron enrichment. Rag-rug economics. When clothing and sheets wear out, turn them into rags. But grandmother elevated rag saving to an art form with her famous braided rugs that warmed floors and hearts. Every worn garment got sorted by color and weight. Woolens for winter rugs, cottons for summer. She'd cut continuous strips, joining pieces invisibly. 3 strips braided tight, then coiled and sewn into rugs that lasted decades. But here's the genius. She planned color placement like an artist. Dark clothes formed borders. Bright colors created patterns. Worn denim became backgrounds. Each rug told the family story. Dad's work shirts, Mum's house dresses, children's outgrown clothes. During the Depression, she sold rugs to wealthy summer residents, earning enough to buy school shoes. Neighbors brought their rags for custom rugs. She'd teach young wives the technique for a dozen eggs or pound of butter. Those rugs cushioned bare floors, provided warmth, and proved that poverty didn't mean living without beauty. Modern rugs unravel in years. Hers survived generations, each strand a memory woven into usefulness. Wallpaper wonders. Old wallpaper and sample books were treasure troves in grandmother's hands. While others saw outdated patterns, she saw raw material for dozens of projects. Large pieces lined drawers and shelves, protecting surfaces and adding beauty. Smaller pieces became gift wrap, book covers and envelope liners. She'd laminate wallpaper onto cardboard for placemats that wiped clean. During the war, when new paper was impossible to find, she created wallpaper quilts. Pieces arranged and sewn onto fabric backing for unique coverlets. Children made paper chains from strips, learning patterns and colors. She'd cover boxes, creating decorative storage from shoe boxes and oatmeal containers. Even made lampshades from wallpaper, stiffened with diluted glue and formed over molds. Her wallpaper crafts sold at church bazaars, earning missionary money. Sample books from the hardware store became art supplies for the entire neighborhood. She'd say, "Yesterday's walls become tomorrow's treasures." Those outdated patterns found new life as drawer dividers, cabinet liners, even hat decorations. Nothing beautiful went to waste just because styles changed. Cold frame cleverness. Old windows became cold frames that extended the growing season by months. My grandmother's collection of salvaged windows created a mini greenhouse system that cost nothing but ingenuity. She'd prop windows against the south side of the house, creating lean-to cold frames for early lettuce and late greens. Broken storm windows arranged in a box with hay bale sides became serious growing space. She started tomatoes in February under glass when neighbours waited until May. The trick was the angle. 45 degrees caught maximum sun while shedding rain. She'd paint the frames white to reflect light onto plants. On cold nights, old quilts covered the glass for insulation. Hot beds used fresh horse manure below soil. Decomposition heat warmed plants through frozen ground. She grew salad greens all winter, fresh herbs when snow covered the ground. Neighbours paid premium prices for February lettuce. Those salvaged windows earned grocery money while providing fresh vegetables year-round. Modern greenhouse kits cost hundreds. Her window collection cost nothing but provided more food than any store-bought system. Button box banking. The button box was more than a sewing notion. It was a savings account, entertainment centre, and teaching tool rolled into one old cookie tin. Every garment gave up its buttons before becoming rags. She'd sort them by size, colour, and material: bone, shell, metal, ceramic, glass. During the Depression, buttons were currency. Good buttons traded for eggs, milk, even flour. She'd string matching sets on thread, ready for sale or trade. Children learned counting, sorting, and patterns playing with buttons. Rainy days meant button crafts, pictures, jewellery, even checkers games. She made button bracelets that sold for pin money. During the war, metal buttons went to scrap drives, but she kept the best for later. Special buttons became drawer pulls, decorations on plain clothes, even game markers. Her button box held thousands, each with potential beyond its original purpose. Modern plastic buttons break and fade. Her mother-of-pearl buttons from the 1890s still gleam, waiting for the perfect project. "Save the buttons," she'd say, while "save the possibilities." Seed packet system. Empty seed packets weren't trash, they were next year's gardening system. My grandmother's seed organization would make modern gardeners weep with envy. She'd save every packet, noting on it what actually grew when planted and yield. These became her personal planting guide, more valuable than any book. Packets went on popsicle sticks for row markers, reminding her what was planted where. Pretty packets decorated the potting shed, inspiration during winter months. She'd give children empty packets to plant their own gardens, teaching without wasting real seeds. Inside each saved packet went saved seeds from the best plants, creating her own adapted varieties. During the war, when seeds were scarce, her saved packets held genetics selected over decades. She'd trade heritage seeds with neighbours, each packet holding history and hope. Those packets became recipe cards for the garden, notes on which tomatoes canned best, which beans dried well. Modern gardeners buy new seeds yearly. Her saved seeds, some passed from her grandmother, still grow true. "A seed packet tells the future," she'd say. "Save it to read again." Washing water wisdom. While many people had family connections to India through the armed forces and colonial service, they also learned water conservation from scarcity. Monday's wash water served multiple purposes before seeing a drain. First, wash was whites in hot, soapy water. That water cooled slightly, then washed colours. Final rinse water watered the garden. Soap residue killed aphids. But the system went deeper. She'd catch the first gallon of cold water while waiting for hot. This went to drinking water crocks. Rinse water from washing floors became toilet flushing water. Indoor plumbing was new and water expensive. She even saved water from boiling eggs. Cooled, it watered houseplants with calcium-rich liquid. During droughts, every drop counted twice. The washing machine's grey water irrigated fruit trees through buried pipes. Her water bill never exceeded $2 monthly, even with 8 people. Modern households waste more water in a day than she used in a week. Water is life, she'd say. Use it more than once. Knife sharpening. Knowledge. Sharp knives were safer and saved money, less waste when cutting, less effort in use. My grandmother's sharpening system kept knives serving for generations. She used the concrete step for rough sharpening, the bottom of a ceramic plate for fine edge. Every night, knives got stropped on a leather strap hung by the sink. She'd save old leather belts just for knife maintenance, scissors sharpened by cutting sandpaper, can openers cleaned with old toothbrushes and oil. She knew the angle for each blade, paring knives steep for precision, butcher knives shallow for strength. During the war, when new knives were impossible to find, she kept the neighborhood's knives sharp for eggs and vegetables. Her knives, some inherited from her grandmother, still cut true. Modern stainless steel can't match the edge of her carbon steel, maintained with knowledge and leather. She'd sharpen neighbors' knives for trade, teaching young wives the skill. A sharp knife is a safe knife, she'd say, and a thrifty one too. Those maintained blades, filleted, chopped, and served for a century. Grease jar geography. Not all grease was equal in grandmother's kitchen. She kept multiple jars, each labeled and designated for specific uses, a system that maximized flavor and economy. Bacon grease, the gold standard, got its own crock for biscuits and cornbread. Chicken fat, schmaltz, made pastries flaky beyond belief. Beef drippings for Yorkshire pudding and roasting potatoes. Even fish frying oil got filtered and saved for Friday fish fries. She'd clarify each fat by heating with water, letting it separate, then lifting the pure fat layer. This removed flavors that might clash with new dishes. During the war, these fats were kitchen currency. She'd trade chicken fat to the Jewish neighbor for beef fat, everyone getting their preferred cooking medium. The rendering schedule followed the cooking. Sunday chicken provided Monday's pie crust fat. Tuesday's beef roast gave Wednesday's fried potato drippings. She never bought cooking oil, yet every dish had the perfect fat for ideal flavor. Modern oils are flavorless. Her specific fats made ordinary ingredients sing with richness. Dust mop dynamics. The dust mop wasn't just for floors, it was a multi-purpose tool that cleaned, polished, and even earned money. My grandmother's mop system would revolutionize modern cleaning. She made mop heads from worn underwear and t-shirts, sewn onto a base that attached to her handle, different materials for different jobs, flannel for dusting, terry for washing, wool for polishing. She'd treat dust mops with her special mixture, kerosene and furniture polish, aged in a jar until perfect. This grabbed dust without spreading it. High cobwebs, ceiling fans, even walls got the mop treatment. She'd use a clean mop to apply floor wax, another to polish. During spring cleaning, she'd rent out her mop collection to neighbors, charging by the day. Her mops lasted decades because she washed and retreated them carefully. She even made miniature mops for cleaning under appliances, selling them at church bazaars. Modern disposable mops fill landfills. Her reusable system cleaned better, lasted longer, cost nothing but worn cloth and knowledge. A good mop is like a good broom, she'd say, and it improves with age. Laundry bluing business. That little bottle of bluing did more than whiten whites. It was a complete home business system my grandmother developed during the Depression. She'd buy bluing in bulk, rebottle it in saved medicine bottles, and sell door-to-door for half the store price. But the uses went beyond laundry. Diluted bluing in rinse water made grey hair shine silver. In the garden, it coloured white flowers for special occasions. She'd add it to whitewash for a brighter finish on chicken coops. During the war, she made Victory Blue ink from bluing and vinegar, selling it when real ink disappeared. Artists bought her concentrated bluing for painting. She even used it in swimming pools. Her drop cleared cloudy water like magic. Her bluing notebook documented dozens of uses discovered through experimentation. The side business earned enough to buy school clothes yearly. Modern whiteners use harsh chemicals. Her bluing was gentle, multi-purpose, and profitable. She'd say, find 12 uses for everything, then sell the knowledge. That little bottle launched a dozen income streams. Paper sack textbooks. Cut bags into sheets for draining fried foods, wrapping gifts, or making patterns for sewing. But the most important use was protecting precious schoolbooks when textbook damage meant buying replacements. Every fall, grandmother supervised book covering using paper sacks. Cut precisely, folded expertly, these covers protected books all year. She'd let children decorate them with drawings, making each book personal. But the genius was in the details: reinforced corners with tape made from flour paste and paper strips, elastic bands from inner tubes held covers tight. She'd make pockets on covers for homework, eliminating lost assignments. During the Depression, damaged books meant no books. Families couldn't afford replacements. Her covering system meant books lasted decades. She taught the technique at school, becoming the unofficial book covering expert. Teachers sent difficult books to her for special treatment. Modern plastic covers cost dollars. Her paper sack system cost nothing, protected better, and let books breathe. Those covered books survived generations of students, each cover telling its own story. Thread spool engineering. Empty thread spools became building blocks of grandmother's household engineering. These wooden cylinders served more purposes than modern folks could imagine. Large spools became furniture legs for lightweight pieces, raising them for easier cleaning. Small spools were drawer pulls painted to match. She'd string them for baby toys, the holes perfect for little fingers. During the war, she made tanks and cars from spools and rubber bands, selling them when store toys disappeared. Spools became stamps when ends were carved, cable organizers with slots cut in sides. She'd even make knitting needles by sharpening long dowels and adding spool ends. Her spool drawer held hundreds, sorted by size. Children built towers and learned engineering with spools. She made Christmas decorations, curtain pulls, even a complete chess set with different size spools. The craft store sold her spool creations on consignment. Modern plastic spools crack and break. Her wooden spools, some from the 1920s, still served daily. A spool's just waiting for its second job, she'd say. Those humble cylinders built toys, furniture, and income. Cream separator science. Fresh milk from the cow came with cream that rose naturally, but my grandmother's cream separation system maximized every drop of this liquid gold. She'd pour fresh milk into shallow pans. More surface area meant faster separation. The cool pantry held these pans overnight. Morning revealed thick cream ready for skimming. But she went further, saving even the foam between cream and milk, using it for coffee. The skimmed milk wasn't waste. It became cottage cheese, fed chickens, or enriched bread dough. Cream got grades, first skimming for butter, second for coffee, third for cooking. She'd shake cream in jars for butter, saving buttermilk for biscuits. During flush seasons, she'd sell cream to neighbors without cows. Her cream ledger tracked production, sales, and uses. One cow's cream earned enough to feed that cow all winter. Modern separation wastes the nuances. Her system captured every grade of richness. She'd say, cream rises for those who wait and watch. That patience turned one product into 6 income streams. Apple storage artistry. Each vegetable got wrapped individually in newspaper, but apple storage was an art form requiring specific knowledge for each variety. She knew which apples kept and which needed immediate use. Keepers went into the apple barrel, each wrapped in newspaper layered with straw. But the genius was variety placement. Apples that released more ethylene went on top, checked first. She'd turn the barrel monthly, using ripest first. Bruised apples became sauce immediately, cores and peels dried for tea. She'd pack apples in barrels of grain. They stayed fresh while flavoring the grain subtly. Some varieties got individual paper wrapping and hanging in mesh bags. These lasted until spring. Her apple notes tracked which trees produced keepers, guiding grafting decisions. She'd trade storage knowledge for apples from neighbors with trees but no knowledge. One barrel, properly packed, fed the family apples from October to May. Modern cold storage can't match her results. Every apple has its season, she'd say, if you store it right. Those wrapped apples provided vitamins through winter. Jar lid genius. Canning jar lids were precious, especially during wartime shortages. My grandmother's lid management system stretched every lid to maximum use. New lids went on preserves meant for long storage. Slightly used lids sealed jellies with wax backup. Bent lids became templates for cutting circles from fabric or paper. She'd punch holes in old lids, creating shakers for flour or powdered sugar. Lids with failed seals became soap dishes, plant saucers, even paint palettes. During the war, she ran a lid exchange, trading sizes neighbors needed. She'd carefully remove wax from jelly jar lids, reusing them multiple times. Her lid test involved filling jars with hot water, checking which lids still sealed tight. Good lids got marked with the year, tracked for reliability. She even made wind chimes from old lids, selling them at craft fairs. The craft generated lid money for next canning season. Modern single-use lids waste metal. Her system made lids serve repeatedly. "A lid's like a promise," she'd say, "good for more than once if you treat it right." Shoe care seminary. Shoes were investments requiring careful maintenance. My grandmother's shoe care routine made footwear last decades, when most families owned 2 pairs every day and Sunday. Every night, shoes got wiped clean, stuffed with newspaper to hold shape and absorb moisture. Saturday was polishing day. Each pair cleaned, conditioned, polished to mirror shine. She made her own polish from lampblack and lard, better than store-bought. Worn heels got built up with leather scraps and glue before holes developed. She'd reinforced toes with hidden patches inside. Her waterproofing mixture, beeswax and linseed oil, kept feet dry through puddles. Children's shoes got passed down 4 times, still serviceable. She'd trade shoe care for cobbling services, maintaining the whole neighborhood's footwear. During the war, when new shoes required ration stamps, her maintenance meant the difference between shod and barefoot. She kept detailed notes on which treatments worked for different leathers. Those shoes carried people through depression and war. Modern shoes last seasons. Hers lasted lifetimes with proper care. Stove blacking business. The cast iron stove required weekly blacking to prevent rust and maintain heat efficiency. My grandmother turned this chore into a profitable side business. She mixed her own stove black from lampblack, graphite and fish oil, a formula learned from her mother. Applied weekly, it kept stoves gleaming and rust-free. But she noticed neighbors' stoves growing rusty, inefficient. She'd offer stove service for 50 cents, bringing her special mixture and elbow grease. The business grew until she serviced 20 stoves weekly. She taught young wives the technique for a fee, providing starter supplies. During the war, when commercial stove black disappeared, her homemade version was the only option. She'd trade stove service for groceries, accumulating enough to feed the family. The key was the fish oil. It polymerized with heat, creating a durable finish. Modern spray paints can't match her mixture's durability. She'd say, "A black stove cooks better and looks proper." Those maintained stoves lasted generations while earning steady income. Window screen surgery. Torn screens meant flies and mosquitoes, but new screening was expensive. My grandmother's screen repair system saved money and prevented disease. Small holes got darned with fine wire, invisible from distance. Larger tiers required patches cut from old screens, sewn with the same wire. She'd save every bit of screening, knowing summer would bring repair needs. During the war, when screening was unavailable, she'd make patches from cheesecloth dipped in diluted glue, temporary but effective. She kept different mesh sizes for different insects. Her repair kit traveled the neighborhood, fixing screens for eggs or vegetables. She'd even make new screens from salvaged frames and hoarded screening. The business grew until she was the town's screen expert. She taught the skill to war widows, helping them earn money, modern fiberglass screening tears easily. Her metal repairs lasted decades. A tight screen is health insurance, she'd say. Those mended screens kept disease out while letting breezes in, proving small repairs prevent big problems. Oven efficiency order. She cooked in order of decreasing heat needs. Bread in the hot morning oven, roast for lunch as it cooled, slow-simmered soup on the dying afternoon coals. But the full system was even more complex. Bread went in first at highest heat. As temperature dropped, in went roasts or casseroles. Next came cookies or cakes at moderate heat. Finally, meringues or herbs for drying in the cooling oven. She'd plan a week's baking for one firing, saving fuel dramatically. The oven thermometer was her arm. She knew temperature by how long she could hold it inside. Each recipe had its place in the cooling sequence. She'd even use residual heat overnight, placing tomorrow's bread to rise in the barely warm oven. During summer, all baking happened early morning to avoid heating the house. Winter baking warmed the kitchen, replacing heating stove use. She kept detailed notes on timing and temperature for each dish. One oven firing produced a week's worth of baked goods. Modern cooks heat ovens for single dishes. Her system maximized every BTU of heat. Medicine bottle market. Empty medicine bottles were valuable commodities in grandmother's economy. She'd wash them carefully, soak off labels, and sort by size and color. Small bottles held seeds for next year's garden, each labeled and dated. Medium bottles became spice containers, sold at church bazaars with her homegrown herbs. Large bottles stored everything from buttons to nails, contents visible through glass. She'd make oil and vinegar sets from matching bottles, adding pour spouts from cork and tubing. During Prohibition, certain bottles commanded premium prices for obvious reasons. She'd trade bottles for medicines when neighbors needed specific sizes. Her bottle collection filled shelves in the basement, organized like a pharmacy. She even made Christmas decorations. Bottles filled with colored water caught sunlight like stained glass. The local pharmacist bought her clean bottles for reuse. Dark bottles preserved tinctures and extracts she made from garden herbs. Clear bottles displayed colorful pickled vegetables. Modern plastic bottles leak and crack. Her glass bottles, some century old, still seal perfectly. Good glass serves forever, she'd say. Quilt planning precision. Completely worn sheets became pillowcases, cleaning rags or bandages. But the real art was in quilt planning, using every scrap to create heirloom bedding. My grandmother planned quilts like military campaigns. She'd sort fabric by weight and color, planning patterns that used specific scrap sizes. Nothing was too small. Tiny pieces became postage stamp quilts. She'd draw patterns on newspaper, testing arrangements before cutting good fabric. Her quilts told stories. Daddy's work shirts, Mama's aprons, baby clothes marking growing years. During the Depression, she made quilts on commission, earning enough to pay property taxes. She'd teach quilting bees, sharing techniques for barter goods. Feed sacks got bleached and dyed for backing. Old blankets became batting when cotton was scarce. She even made utility quilts from sample books, upholstery samples. From furniture stores created heavy, warm covers. Her quilt frame dominated the parlor in winter, family gathering to stitch and share stories. Each quilt took 400 hours but lasted generations. Modern machine quilts can't match her tiny, perfect stitches. Every scrap has a place, she'd say, in a quilt or in life. Those quilts warmed bodies and hearts for a century. Honey production partnership. Though she didn't keep bees herself, grandmother partnered with the local beekeeper in a system that benefited everyone involved. She'd plant extra flowers specifically for bees, borage, lavender, mint left to flower. In exchange, the beekeeper provided honey at wholesale prices plus free wax. That wax became furniture polish, thread strengthener, and drawer lubricant. She'd make healing salves from honey and herbs, selling them for burn treatment. During sugar rationing, honey became currency. She'd trade honey for sugar rations, stretching both sweeteners. Her honey cookbook sold at church fundraisers, recipes developed to use honey when sugar was scarce. She knew which flowers produced which honey flavors, planning her garden accordingly. The beekeeper valued her flower planting so much he'd share special varietals. She'd help harvest and process, learning beekeeping without the equipment investment. That partnership provided sweetener, medicine, craft supplies, and income. Modern relationships rarely show such mutual benefit. "Help the bees," she'd say, "and they'll help you back." Sweet wisdom that fed both families. The flour sifter secret service. My grandmother's flour sifter did triple duty beyond baking, and neighbors would borrow it for uses that would surprise modern cooks. First, the obvious, sifting weevils from flour during the Depression when throwing away infested flour meant no bread. But she discovered sifted flour measured more accurately, stretching 5 pounds to seem like 6 in recipes. The real genius? She'd sift powdered lime over her garden for pest control, getting even distribution impossible by hand. During painting projects, she'd sift dry pigments for homemade paint, avoiding lumps. She even used it to powder babies' bottoms with cornstarch when talc was unavailable. The sifter distributed wood ash evenly over icy walks, requiring half the amount of hand scattering. She'd clean it between uses with saved bread crusts that absorbed odors and residue. That one tool, costing 15 cents in 1935, served the kitchen, garden, workshop, and nursery. She'd say, "A tool that does one thing is lazy. Make it work for its keep." Modern single-use gadgets would horrify her. That sifter still works 60 years later, having served a dozen purposes beyond its design. Cheesecloth currency. During the Depression, cheesecloth was almost as valuable as the cheese it once wrapped. My grandmother would wash, bleach, and carefully store every piece, knowing its worth extended far beyond the kitchen. She'd layer cheesecloth for straining everything from jelly to soup stock. Folded thick, it became reusable coffee filters decades before paper ones existed. In the garden, cheesecloth protected ripening grapes from birds while letting sun through. She'd wrap herbs in it for bouquet garni that flavored stews without leaving leaves. During canning season, cheesecloth held spices for pickling, easily removed when done. But here's the clever part. She'd rent clean cheesecloth to neighbors for straining, charging by the yard. Medical uses included bandages when gauze was scarce. She even made wedding veils from carefully bleached cheesecloth, earning money from Depression brides. Babies' christening gowns got made from the finest grade. One package of cheesecloth, costing a dime, earned dollars through creative reuse. She'd say, "Cheesecloth is like opportunity, transparent but strong when you layer it right." The Pie Bird Brigade. Those ceramic birds that vented steam from pies weren't just functional. They were a complete system for perfect pies that my grandmother elevated to science. She had a collection of 12 pie birds, each serving different purposes. Small birds for single crust pies, tall ones for deep dish fruit pies. She'd place them strategically, center for even venting, off-center for pies with uneven filling. But here's what nobody remembers. She'd fill the bird's hollow center with sugar and spices that slowly released into the pie as it baked. During apple season, she'd process hundreds of pies, her pie birds preventing soggy bottoms and overflow. She'd rent her collection to neighbors for holiday baking, charging by the bird. Each had a name and personality, Whistler for the one that actually whistled, Faithful for her oldest. She even made pie birds from clay during the war when ceramic was scarce, firing them in her coal stove. Those birds earned their keep, preventing waste and ensuring perfection. Modern pie weights can't match the efficiency of her bird brigade. A pie without a bird, she'd say, is like a garden without a scarecrow bound for trouble. Enamelware Hospital. Many enamelware pieces were lost to World War II scrap metal drives, making remaining pieces precious. My grandmother ran an enamelware repair service that kept these valuable items functioning for decades. Chips in enamelware exposed metal that would rust. She'd clean the spot with vinegar, then fill with a paste of pumice and nail polish. Crude but effective. Larger repairs used melted candle wax mixed with matching crayon for color. She'd heat the damaged area with a candle, apply the mixture, then smooth with a hot knife. Her repair kit traveled to neighbors' houses, fixing precious enamelware for barter goods. During the war, she taught repair classes, helping housewives preserve what they couldn't replace. She'd even re-enamel pieces using glass powder and her oven, dangerous but effective when done right. The repair business earned enough to buy war bonds. Modern throwaway culture would appall her. Those repaired pieces still function, patches proudly showing their survival story. A chip doesn't end a pot's life, she'd say. It just adds character while teaching patience. The clothesline telegraph. Beyond drying clothes, the clothesline served as a communication system in my grandmother's neighborhood. The way clothes hung sent messages to observant neighbors. Sheets hung first meant washing day. Don't visit. Red items on the line warned of illness in the house. Baby clothes announced new arrivals to the neighborhood. During the Depression, an empty line on wash day meant trouble. Neighbors would quietly investigate. She'd arrange clothes by color to create patterns visible from the street, brightening the neighborhood. Her clothesline faced the kitchen window, letting her watch clothes while working. She knew wind patterns, hanging heavy items on calm days, light ones when breezy. The pulley system, oiled with saved bacon grease, worked silently. She'd even use the line for non-clothing items, drying herbs, airing quilts, bleaching linens in sun. During wartime blackouts, she'd string dark clothes as impromptu curtains. The line earned money too. She'd charge wealthy neighbors to hang their Persian rugs for spring cleaning. That simple rope between poles served communication, decoration, and commerce. Modern dryers isolate us. Her line connected the community. Potato water, starch factory. Use warm potato water instead of plain water for bread. The starch feeds the yeast and creates a softer crumb. But grandmother's potato water industry went far beyond bread making. Every potato peeling session produced cloudy water, rich with starch. She'd let it settle, pour off the clear water, and save the starchy residue. This became laundry starch superior to store-bought, free and endlessly renewable. She'd dilute it for light stiffening, use it thick for collar stays. During the war, she sold potato starch to neighbors when commercial starch disappeared. But the innovation didn't stop there. Potato starch became wallpaper paste, fabric stiffener for crafts, even face powder when mixed with rice powder. She'd use it to polish silver, the mild abrasive, cleaned without scratching. Artists bought her concentrated starch for sizing canvas. The potato water itself went to the garden, where plants thrived on the minerals. She kept different grades of starch for different purposes, labeled and stored in salvaged jars. One bucket of potato peelings produced a dozen products. Modern, single-purpose products would mystify her. The potato gives twice, she'd say, once for eating, once for everything else. Screen door gallery. Old screen doors became functional art in grandmother's hands. When screens tore beyond repair, The frames found new life as organizational tools that would make modern systems jealous. She'd stretch fabric over frames, creating bulletin boards for the kitchen. Chicken wire replaced screening for a pot rack that hung from the ceiling. During the Depression, she made room dividers from old doors, covering them with wallpaper samples. The frames became drying racks for herbs, photographs, even small game. She'd hinged two together for a folding display at craft fairs. Horizontal frames became underbed storage, keeping boxes off damp floors. She'd even make giant embroidery hoops from circular screen frames. The business grew until she was buying old doors from house demolitions. Her screen door crafts sold to tourists who loved the rustic charm. She'd teach classes on repurposing, earning money while helping others see potential in junk. Modern particle board furniture can't match the durability of her screen door creations. A door closes on one use, she'd say, but opens to dozens more. Twine and string economy. Package string got unwound, knots picked out, and wound onto empty spools. But the complete string system involved complex grading and purposing that maximized every fiber. She'd grade string by thickness and strength, grocery string for light jobs, butcher's twine for heavy work. Unraveled burlap bags provided the strongest fibers, worth hours of picking apart. She'd braid thin strings into rope, twist paper into emergency string. During tomato season, she'd trade balls of good string for fresh vegetables. Gardeners always needed tying material. Her string inventory filled an entire drawer, each type wound on its own holder made from sticks or cardboard. She'd wax string for strength, tar it for weather resistance, even made fishing line from braided silk thread, unraveled from worn stockings. The string business supported Christmas gifts during lean years. She'd create string art, macrame plant hangers, even woven rugs from heavy twine. Modern synthetic string breaks and stretches. Her cotton string, some saved for 50 years, still holds strong. String ties more than packages, she'd say. It ties communities together. Canning Jar Music Academy. Empty canning jars weren't just storage, they were an entire orchestra in grandmother's creative hands. She discovered that different-sized jars filled with varying water levels created perfect pitch. She'd tune her jar orchestra with a pitch pipe, marking water levels with nail polish for quick setup. During the Depression, she taught music lessons using jar orchestras. No expensive instruments needed. Children learned scales, harmony, even performed concerts. She'd create colored water with food coloring, making visual music lessons. The system grew until she had 4 complete jar pianos that she rented for school programs. During the war, when instruments went to military bands, her jar orchestras kept music alive in communities. She'd even composed special pieces for jar ensemble, selling the sheet music. Large jars became drums with stretched inner tube tops. Pickle jars with rice became shakers. Her Depression orchestra performed at fairs, earning money for members. Modern electronic instruments can't match the pure tones of her water-filled jars. Music lives in everything, she'd say. You just need to let it out. The Sawdust Salvation System. Every bit of sawdust from grandfather's workshop got saved, but grandmother transformed this waste into household gold through uses that would astound modern environmentalists. She'd pack sawdust between ice blocks, making them last days longer. Mixed with melted wax, it became fire starters superior to any store-bought product. During butchering, sawdust absorbed blood, keeping floors safe and clean. She'd pack fragile items in sawdust for storage or shipping. But here's the innovation. She'd mix sawdust with flour paste to create a modeling compound for children's crafts, selling the recipe to schools. Sawdust paths between garden rows suppressed weeds while decomposing into soil improvement. She'd even make sweeping compound from sawdust and oil, selling it to local stores. During the war, she stuffed pillows with cedar sawdust, naturally moth-repelling and sweet-smelling. The sawdust business earned enough to buy grandfather new tools. Different woods served different purposes: pine for kindling, cedar for sachets, oak for smoking meat. Modern particle board wastes this resource. Sawdust is just wood waiting for its next job, she'd say. That wisdom turned waste into wealth. The dripping pan empire! The pan that caught drippings under the roast was more than cookware. It was the foundation of an entire flavor system that modern kitchens can't replicate. My grandmother had 3 dripping pans, each dedicated to different meats, never mixed. The beef pan developed a patina over decades that created gravies restaurants couldn't match. She'd deglaze with potato water, creating silk-smooth sauces without lumps. Between roasts, these pans stored their accumulated flavors in the cold pantry. She'd scrape the solidified drippings, saving them like treasure. A spoonful of aged beef drippings transformed plain vegetables into company-worthy dishes. She'd trade spoonfuls of her famous drippings to neighbors, commanding premium barter rates. During the Depression, she'd rent her seasoned pans to neighbors for holiday roasts. Their flavor guaranteed success. She'd never fully wash them, just wipe clean and re-season. The pork pan made biscuits that won county fairs. The chicken pan created Yorkshire puddings that rose like clouds. Modern non-stick pans can't develop this flavor legacy. A good pan is like a good friendship, she'd say. It gets better with age and proper care. Those pans cooked with 50 years of accumulated wisdom. Hairpin engineering. Bobby pins and hairpins weren't just for hairstyling. They were the repair kit that fixed everything from eyeglasses to machinery. My grandmother kept a tin of pins by the door, knowing their 1,000 uses. Bent properly, they became emergency eyeglass screws holding frames together until proper repair. She'd use them to unclog salt shakers, clean typewriter keys, even pick locks when keys went missing. During the war, she made fishing hooks from hairpins, trading them to sportsmen for ration stamps. They marked book pages better than bookmarks, held papers without damaging them. She'd string them into chain-mail pot scrubbers that lasted forever. Hairpins retrieved items from drains, held clock gears during repair, even served as emergency electrical connections. She'd sell decorated hairpins as jewelry. Wrapped with embroidery thread, they became fashionable accessories. The hairpin tin traveled everywhere, solving problems tools couldn't. Modern plastic pins break instantly. Her steel pins, some from the 1920s, still served daily. A hairpin is just a solution waiting to happen, she'd say. That tin of bent metal solved more problems than any toolbox. Newspaper log manufacturing. During coal shortages, my grandmother discovered that newspapers could become fuel, but her newspaper log system went beyond simple burning. It became a precise science that heated homes through bitter winters. She'd soak newspapers in water with a tablespoon of salt per bucket. The salt made them burn slower and hotter. Rolled tight around a broomstick, tied with string, they dried into logs that burned for hours. The trick was compression and the right mixture of colored and black and white pages. Comic sections with their heavy ink burned longest. She'd add coffee grounds or sawdust to the center for extra burn time. During the Depression, she sold newspaper logs to neighbors without coal money. A bundle of 20 logs cost less than one coal delivery, but provided similar heat. She'd even make specialty logs with herbs for mosquito control on summer porches. The business grew until she was buying old newspapers from the library, turning knowledge into warmth. Modern fire logs can't match her newspaper logs' efficiency. Yesterday's news becomes tomorrow's heat, she'd say. Those logs warmed bodies and proved ingenuity conquers poverty. Waste nothing soup philosophy. We end where hunger never did, with the perpetual soup pot that transformed scraps into sustenance. This wasn't just one recipe, but a philosophy that fed millions through hard times. Bones, vegetable and fruit scraps, fish heads and chicken feet found new purpose in rich, flavorful broths. My grandmother's soup pot lived on the back burner, accepting contributions all week. Carrot peelings, celery leaves, onion skins, all added depth. Clean vegetable water joined the pot. Leftover gravy enriched it. Even plate scrapings, carefully sorted, found their way in. She'd strain it Sunday night, starting fresh Monday with the strained stock as base. That pot fed anyone hungry, family, hobos, neighbors in need. During the Depression, her soup pot became community sustenance. She'd add whatever neighbors could contribute, a potato here, an onion there. Everyone ate. The smell meant security, the taste meant home. Modern convenience foods can't match the nutrition of that ever-simmering pot. Empty bowls mean empty hearts, she'd say. Keep the pot full, keep hope alive. These 100 hacks represent more than mere thriftiness. They're a masterclass in resilience, creativity, and community building. My grandmother's worn recipe box, the one I mentioned at the beginning, holds more than recipes. It holds a way of life that honored resources, strengthened communities, and proved that ingenuity trumps income every time. In our modern world of waste and want, perhaps it's time to open our own recipe boxes to these old ideas, not because we have to, but because these hacks created something beyond savings. They created security, community, and the confidence that comes from knowing you can make something from nothing. So here's my challenge. Try just one of these hacks this week. Save your bacon grease, sharpen your knives on a ceramic plate, make soup from scraps. You might discover what my grandmother knew all along, that the best things in life aren't bought, they're built from wisdom, patience, and the revolutionary idea that nothing is waste in the right hands. If you found value in these forgotten kitchen secrets, give this video a like and subscribe for more journeys into the wisdom of yesteryear. Share your own family kitchen hacks in the comments below. I'd love to hear what your grandmother knew that we've forgotten. Until next time, remember, waste not, want not, and cook with love.